Hello again, everyone. This is JJ, also known as Bion King, here on YouTube. Again, I'm sitting in the same place as last time, because the other place is kind of filled at the moment. Anyway, sorry about some of the noise. It's kind of getting hot where I live, so I got a cooler going, and it's not the quietest cooler in the world, and sorry about that jerk and maybe potential jerks. Anyways, so if you can remember a while back in one of my videos, I said I'd do a deck tech on one of my favorite formats. And to me, this is personally my favorite format. Because in this format, you can do single player or multiplayer, but multiplayer is always more of the norm in this. So anyway, what this format is called it's called Commander. So in Commander, if you have watched my Tiny Leaders decks, or my deck decks of those at least, it's kind of like that, but except in this one, with Commander, it's 100 card singleton format, and you can have any card with any converted mana cost, whereas Tiny Leaders, it's a 50 card singleton format, and everything has to be 3 or below. Oh, and except for basic lands. And the same rules still apply. Whatever color shows up on your commander's card, your legendary creature, those are the colors you use, and no color can show up out of the identity. So anyway, I am doing the deck tech on one of my favorite commander decks that I have personally built myself. So this deck is Krenko Mob Boss. And if you also notice, I got a new background. I found this background at a thrift shop, so it was quite good and it works. I mean, and sorry about it flashing. I also got the fan on to help turn the air around. Anyways, so the commander in this is Krenko Mob Boss. So with Krenko Mob Boss, you can tap and put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control, and he himself is a goblin. So basically, when you tap him, if it's just him in play, only goblin, you put a 1/1 goblin warrior or goblin into play, and then next turn you untap him, tap him again, you put 2 since there's going to be 2, and then it just keeps doubling over and over and over, and he is ridiculously good fun. He's one of those decks that is competitive, yet if you know how to play him right, he is also fun to play with just some friends around. Now, your friends might hate you for playing him because of how evil he is at times, but, oh well. Now, let's go on to the land base. So, in the land base, we are running 40 lands. So, the first land we're running is Valakut the Mountain Pinnacle. So, this enters the battlefield tapped, and whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, you may have Valakut the Mountain Pinnacle deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So basically, if this is on the battlefield, and you have another mountain enter, and you have 5 other mountains, it's basically a lightning bolt to target creature or player. Or, it's basically a lightning bolt. So, and then this itself can tap to add red. Our next one is Hall of the Bandit Lord. So this enters battlefield tapped. Just says comes into play, but basically it does mean enter the battlefield. So you tap this and pay 3 life, and you're wondering, why is paying life good? Well, life is kind of a resource unless you go to certain decks, but especially in Commander since you start off with 40 life. So yeah, it's kind of more of a resource in Commander than it is in other formats. Anyways, so you tap this, pay 3 life, and add 1 colorless to your mana pool, and if that mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that creature has haste. If you cast it on Krenko, he can tap right away and give you a goblin. So that's good, and then the rest is just going to be 38 mountains. Nothing more, nothing less. I've been watching people do deck techs, and they say 38 mountains with about 8 accelerants, like 38, or not mountains, but 38 plus lands with 8 plus accelerants. And this, I'm just running 40 and probably like 2 or 3 accelerants. So I kind of got the ideal mana. Now, let's go on to our creatures. So in this, the majority of creatures are, of course, goblins, so they can help out with Krenko. But the other creatures I have in here that are not goblins are kind of more utility creatures. So we have Magus of the Wheel, So pay 1 generic and a red, tap him, sack Magus to the wheel, and each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7 cards. In this deck, you kind of empty out your hand very quickly, so he is very good in this deck. And if you have more wheel effects, use them because of how often you empty out your hand. Then we have Hell Rider, so haste, and whenever a creature you control attacks, it deals 1 damage to the defending player. So if you have 40 goblins, and they all have haste or are no longer summoning sickness, you can swing in with all 40 of those to target opponent. And if they have 40 life or less, basically they don't have to block. They're going to die right away because they take 1 damage already. So, there's that. And then our next guy, Chancellor of the Forge. So, Chancellor of the Forge is very, very good in this deck. So, with him, if you draw him in your opening hand, you can reveal him during, like, at the very beginning. And then at the beginning of your first upkeep, you put a 1/1 red goblin creature token on the battlefield. So, basically, put a 1/1 creature with, and it has haste itself. So, basically, put a 1/1 creature with haste, which will help you attack your opponent right away for free. And then, when he enters the battlefield, put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens into play with haste, where X is the number of creatures you control. With Krenko, you kind of put out creatures a lot. So, basically with him, play him and get a bunch of goblins and wreck your opponent's face. And if you haven't tapped Krenko yet, play him first, then tap Krenko. Or I'd suggest tapping Krenko, then playing him, because you get the same number of goblins either way. Next we have Zealous Conscripts. So when this enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. So target permanent means like artifact, enchantment, or creature, or land. Untap that permanent and gains haste until end of turn. So, what the haste applies to is basically creatures. But, see, with the permanent, you can untap anything, but everybody just usually takes a creature with Zealous Conscripts. And that's what I usually do. I just use it on Krenko, untap Krenko, and then tap him again to get a bunch more goblins. So, he works, use him. Or her, sorry. I mean, I can barely see the art at times, but yeah, that's a girl. So, sorry everybody. Anyways, and then we have Ogre Battle Driver. So, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end turn. And haste means it can attack and tap this turn. So, basically all your goblins that you create with Krenko, if you can remember, are just little 1/1s. So, tap him, and then get a bunch of like 3/1 goblins that can attack. And I think, yep, that's the end of our utility creatures. Now on to our goblins, basically the rest of the majority of our creatures. So we have Mog War Marshal. So Goblin Warrior, when he comes into play or is put into a graveyard from play, put a 1/1 red goblin creature token into play. So you put him into play, and then if you can't pay the echo cost or don't want to, he goes into the graveyard and you get another goblin. So he enters, get a goblin. When he leaves, get a goblin. And with Krenko, it works. Then we have Goblin Vandal. So destroy target artifact defending player controls. And you can only do this, though, if he was not blocked. So, but if he isn't blocked and you decide to do that, you get to untap him. But this deck, basically in red, there's a lot of artifact hate. And this deck has basically a bunch of artifact hate. So then we have Goblin Bushwhacker. So pay 1 red, and then you can kick it for 1 red. And if it does, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste. So he helps there. And then Goblin Wizard. So with Goblin Wizard, you can take a goblin from your hand and put it directly into play. So there are some things that will mess around with this. Like there's a card called Containment Priest, which would screw this over. But besides that, just having put a creature into play for free, and if it's one of your expensive goblins, which I think the most expensive goblin is him. I have 4 converted mana cost and maybe like 1 or 2 other people. then yeah. Then we have Warren and Skater. Does the same thing as Goblin Wizard, except with him, he has to deal damage to opponent, but the cool thing about him is he has double strike. So first, if he does hit opponent, first strike resolves, and then you can put a goblin from your hand, and then normal damage resolves, and then you can put another goblin from your hand. So you get to put 2 goblins from your hand for free with that guy. Then one of my favorite guys, which is really good creature removal, is Arms Dealer. So sack a goblin, Arms Dealer deals 4 damage to target creature. So it's like, oh, I got way too many goblins, or it's just, you don't want a goblin, so you can just pay 2 red and sack a goblin and deal 4 damage to target creature. Then we have Goblin King. All goblins get +1/+1 and gain Mountain Walk. This will come up not soon, but sometime here. So yeah. So the Mountain Walk will come up here sometime soon. Or not soon, but soon enough. Anyway, then we have Goblin War Chief. Goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and goblin creatures you control have haste. So basically, have him on the battlefield. Krenko will not cost 4, he will cost 3. So, he's good there. And excuse me. Then we have Tuk Tuk Scrapper. So when this or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, and I think you're only running about 3, maybe 4 allies in this, so you can only get 4 triggers at the most with this guy. But when you do, you can destroy target artifact, and if that artifact is put in a graveyard this way, he deals damage to that artifact's controller equal to the number of allies. So he's good just for the artifact hate. Then we have Goblin Chieftain. Haste, and other goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 and have haste. And sorry about the shadows on the cards, that's my fingers kind of getting into the spotlight. So then we have Goblin Recruiter. When this comes into play, search your library for any number of goblin cards. Not just 1, not just 2, any. The problem with that, though, is you have to reveal those cards, and then you put them on top of your library. So you don't get to put them into your hand, which kind of sucks. But, I mean, just even looking through your library, tutoring in this format, Commander, since it's singleton, tutoring is your best option. Tutoring is the bee's knees. So then we have Goblin Pile Driver. So protection from blue, protection from that color, if you can remember from another video, means they can't be affected by that color. Even if you wanted to do it to them, it even affects them. Like, you can't hit them yourself with that specific color. So, anyway, when this creature attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end turn for each other attacking goblin. Say you have about 100 attacking goblins and him himself, and your opponent has a mono blue deck or just blue creatures out. This guy's going to be hitting for 200 damage to your opponent. Just straight to their face. It's evil. Then we have Goblin Ringleader. This pairs really well with the Goblin Recruiter, because with Goblin Ringleader, when this comes into play, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and then put all Goblin cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. And this even kind of helps with deck thinning. Say you're getting mana flooded, and then you play him, and the next 4 cards you reveal were just mountains. You can put those all to the bottom. So, not only does he help with Goblin Recruiter, he helps with deck thinning, in a way. Then we have Goblin Bushwhacker. So he costs 3 or Surge. If you may cast this spell for its Surge cost, if your teammate has cast another spell this turn, and excuse me, my throat's getting a little parched. Anyway, it has haste. So when this enters the battlefield, if its Surge cost was paid, other creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So like Goblin Bushwhacker, but a little bit different. So yeah. Then we have Gem Palm Incinerator. I usually just always cycle this guy. So when you cycle, you can discard this card from your hand, and if you do, draw a card. And when you do, you may have it deal X damage to target creature. X is the number of goblins in play. This deck produces goblins up to wazoo, so it's basically, I'm going to hit that creature for 8 or whatever, and I've done that before. Then we have Goblin Soothsayer. So tap 1 red, tap him, 1 red, tap this, sack a goblin, all red creatures get +1/+1 until end turn. Helps with just helping your creatures. Problem is that it is a sack outlet, and there are some cards that take over Europe. Anyway, sorry everybody. Somebody just came in and wanted to start talking to me. Anyway, yeah, there are some cards in Commander that take over your opponent's turn, and they can basically like make you tap one red and sack him himself, or sack one of your better goblins, and kind of screw you over. So basically, you know if that's gonna happen, you kind of just want to sack the goblin that is a sack outlet, and do that for most of your goblins as well if you have sack outlets. So anyway, Goblin Lookout, kind of the same thing, except this time you sack a goblin, and all goblins get +2/+0 until end of turn. So it doesn't affect your red creatures, it only affects your goblins, but it is kind of a better boost. Then we have Skirk Prospector. I'd say every Krenko deck in the world basically should run this guy, because it is a mana source himself. With how many goblins you are producing, you basically have a bunch of mana. And with another card that's going to be coming up in my enchantments part, it's going to be an infinite combo, and I'll show you how. So, yeah, but remember, just if an opponent takes over your turn, sack him or sack any of your things that help you sack. Then we have Goblin Chirurgeon, sack a goblin to regenerate a target creature. So, and you pay 0. So basically, it's just sack a goblin, generate target creature. Then we have Jeering Instigator. So, with Jeering Instigator, you put it down as a morph. And then when you flip it up with its morph, when it is turned face up, gain control of another target creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste. So basically, I always take control of Krenko. Anything that helps me untap in this deck, I always get Krenko just to untap him and get more goblins. That's what I always do, but I mean, it's still good. So then we have Reckless 1 haste. Reckless 1's power and toughness are each equal to the number of goblins in play. So it also counts your opponent's goblins as well. So that's good. And then we have Chasm Guide. Whenever this or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain haste. You're not running a bunch of allies, but even just a quick second burst to give all of your goblins haste, he's good. So there's that. And then we have Goblin Tinkerer. So pay 1 red, tap him, destroy target artifact, and then that artifact deals its damage equal to its casting cost to Goblin Tinkerer. So you can destroy anything, but the problem is it has to be 1 or less in order for him to stay alive, except for another card which I'll show here in a moment, which works well with not only goblins but him. So then we have Horde Boggart, kind of the same thing as the Reckless one, except this time it counts all your red permanents, and it has Menace. So, there's that. And then we have Goblin Matron. This is like Goblin Recruiter, except this time you can only search for 1. So, that's the problem. But if you do, you get to put it into your hand. Of course, you still have to reveal it, but you get to put it into your hand. And the last card is Skirk Prospector. Or Skirk Drill Sergeant, sorry. When this or another goblin is put into a graveyard from play, you may pay 2 generic and a red. If you do, reveal the top card of your library. So basically reveal, you show everybody the top card, and if it's goblin, it goes into play. If not, it goes into your graveyard. So that's the problem, but oh well. So now let's go on to artifacts, and everybody, this video is going to be quite long because of what Commander is, so sorry about that. But anyways, we have Coat of Arms. So this tells really well, or pairs really well with goblins and basically any deck that is running tribal, because with tribal decks it really helps out. So what it does is it's each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. So basically, say you have let's just give a rough estimate of about 10 goblins. Each other goblin is going to get +9/+9. That is ridiculous. It is just pure and utter madness. Then we have Eldrazi Monument. Creatures you control get +1/+1, have flying, and are indestructible. Excuse me. Anyway, at the beginning of your upkeep, sack a creature if you can't sack Eldrazi Monument. But basically, giving all your creatures indestructible and flying in this deck, it's ridiculous. And with Krenko, if they don't get rid of Krenko, you have an infinite you can have this on the battlefield infinite unless somebody destroys it. So that's the problem, but oh well. Then we have Obelisk of Erd, so this has Convoke. So with Convoke, you can either tap your lands or tap creatures, and the creatures will pay for one or the mana of that creature's color. So basically, if you have 6 goblins, you can tap those 6 goblins, or say you have 6 lands, you can tap those 6 lands, or a mixture of both. Anyway, when this enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and creatures you control of the chosen type get +2/+2. And that's a permanent boost, so for as long as this is on the battlefield. Then we have Staff of Nin. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. So basically what I have this in here for is just for card draw, because card draw, like I said, if you have a lot of will effects and stuff in this deck, use them, or extra card draw, because this deck really empties out hands quick. Well, your hand at least. And then with this, you can deal 1 damage to target creature or player, so it's okay, the last part. If it was more, it'd be better, but anyway. So right here, we have one of our win conditions. In Krenko, I have several win conditions. I can either overwhelm you with creatures, or have one of my things help. But this is one of the win conditions. So I have Altar of the Brood in here. Altar of the Brood is, whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. This is a mill card. So basically, if I have like 50 goblins coming to the battlefield under my turn, tokens count as permanent. So there's 50 cards from your graveyard, or your library, gone. Then our next one, Soul Ring. Soul Ring because Soul Ring. Every commander deck in the world, doesn't matter who you are, what colors you're running, run a Soul Ring. It doesn't matter. You can add 2 to your mana pool right away for only 1. It's way too good. It's way too good. Then we have Lightning Greaves. Equipped creature has haste and can't be the target of spells or abilities. So what that means is its equipped creature has haste and shroud. And that's good because because if you put this on Krenko, you can't hit him yourself, and your opponents can't hit him, and the equip cost is 0. So a great turn 1 hand is like Mountain, Soul Ring, tap the Soul Ring, get Lightning Greaves out, next turn play another Mountain, and then just tap all 4 for 4 mana, equip Lightning Greaves to Krenko, and get a 1/1 Goblin by turn 2. The best hand, though, is having the Chancellors, but anyway, yeah, and I put those in the wrong area. Whoops. Now on to our enchantments. So our first enchantment is kind of a screw everybody card. Even you at some point, but you're only running 2. So anyway, all non-basic lands become mountains. You're only running 2 mountains, or 2 non-basics, so basically it kind of screws you over at that point. But anyways, those non-basics aren't the strongest, but a lot of people love to run non-basics in Commander, especially tri-colored and 5-colored decks. Even some dual-colored decks. But anyway, if you can remember back to Goblin King, this also helps because it gives your creatures Mountain Walk. So this and Goblin King smash your opponent's face with like 20 goblins. They're dead. Then our next one, we have Berserker's Onslaught. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. Just kind of so you can swing in for a little bit more if you can. Then we have Fervor. Creatures you control have haste. It's something. And then Hammer of Perforos. Same thing, except this one, sack a land, put a 3/3 colorless golem enchantment, artifact, creature, token onto the battlefield. So kind of a little bit better than Fervor because of that second ability, but yeah. Then here's another one of our win conditions, Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, so basically whenever you tap Krenko and get goblins, it deals 1 damage to each opponent for each creature that enters the battlefield. So say you had 10 creatures enter the battlefield, it's going to deal 10 damage to each opponent. And Commander, it's multiplayer format. And then Perforos, God of the Forge, same thing as Impact Tremors, but the catch is it deals 2 damage this time, and he has Indestructible himself. Also, if you have Devotion to 5, which means the little symbols up here, if you have 5 of those symbols or more among all your permanents, and tokens don't count because they have a cost is 0. Anyway, he becomes a creature himself. And also, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end turn. So he's really good. And then Warstorm Surge, another one of our win conditions, does the same thing as Perforos and Impact Tremors, except this counts the power. So say you have the Coat of Arms out, and then play this, you can basically kill your opponent in one shot, because all of your goblins will be entering. Say you have 10 goblins, and then you just play those. Each of your goblins going to be dealing at least 19 or more damage to your opponent. So there's that. And then we have Goblin Bombardment. Sack a creature. This deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Last night, where I go to, my game store holds the Nights, Magic the Gathering Nights on Tuesdays, and of course Fridays because of F&M. But I screwed over someone last night, and let's just say he didn't have a good time with this card. So, yeah, and then we have Goblin Shrine. So, as long as target land is a mountain, all goblins get +1/+0. And then if Goblin Shrine leaves play, so that's the problem. If it leaves play, it deals 1 damage to each goblin. I remember someone played an enchantment destruction against this, and it really screwed me over because all my goblins were 1/1s, and I didn't have the Coat of Arms out. So, and I had it in my hand, which sucked. So, pissed me off to no end. Then we have Aggravated Assault. With Skirk Prospector and Aggravated Assault, if you have 10 goblins, infinite goblins. And how's that infinite goblins? Say you tapped Krenko and you had 10 goblins on the battlefield already, with Krenko being already tapped, and you have Skirk Prospector. You sack 5 of those goblins, untap all creatures. So you can untap Krenko and then tap him. He counts himself, those 5 goblins, and probably Skirk Prospector. If you have him left, you get 5 more goblins. So you'll be up to like 11 or something. You sack 5, go up to 6, or go up to 12, sack 5, 7, go up to 14, and you just keep profiting 1 and essentially more and more after time. So basically all Krenko decks should run this card with Skirk Prospector. So yeah. Now onto our sorceries. So we have Warp Worlds. A lot of text, but basically what I'll say is, if I can just shorten this, pay 8, each player shuffles all permanents, so basically all your tokens, everything. Then you reveal cards from your library, all permanents go into play, and sorceries and instants go onto the bottom of your library. And everything except enchantments enter first, and then you put enchantments. So kind of screws you over with like Warstorm Surge and Perforos and Impact Tremors entering last. But say you can decide to shuffle Krenko into your deck, and you get Krenko out, and you get a lot of your goblins out, tap Krenko, kill everybody in one shot. And I was playtesting this deck one time and got 100, so yeah, this card is very fun. If you want to run it in Krenko, go ahead. You don't have to, but if you can, it's the most fun card. Then we have Vandal Blast, more Artifact, Hate, and then you can overload, which means instead of target, you can do each. Then we have Harnessed by Force, another one of those untap things that helps me untap Krenko. And so there's that, costs 3. Then Reforge the Soul. This is like Magus of the Will, except it has Miracle. And Miracle is if you draw the card. As the first card you drew this turn. Each player discards his or her hand, draws 7 cards. It helps you. And then we have Flame Fusillade. Until in turn permanents you control gain. Tap, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So, if a lot of your goblins have haste, you have 40 goblins to kill off your opponent. And then, just all of these sorceries are just create goblins. 4 goblins. 3 goblins with Mountain Walk, 2 goblins, and 2 goblins. So, that's just your sorceries that help you create goblins. And then, our last 2 cards, Smash the Smithereens, Artifact Hate, and then Savage Beating. You can only play it during the combat. Choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end turn. And when this... And creatures you control... Well, creatures you control gain double strike, or untap all creatures you control, and they, you get another combat phase. So sorry about this pause on that. I was trying to think and read it at the same time. And then you can pay Entwine, which lets you choose both. So that's good. So, anyways, sorry this video was a little bit longer than I even expected. I was expecting maybe like 25 minutes, but it's like 30 minutes right now. But yeah, that's 100 cards. I mean, it also includes your commander, so 99 card single, and then you include your commander, which makes it 100. But anyway, commander is a very fun format. If you can get into it, get into it. It's very, very great, and it's one of my favorite formats. If I ever get the chance to play it with people, I will for certain times. But anyways, yeah, I hope you all enjoy this deck tech on my today's commander, and hope you all have a good day. Bye.